you lose your 1-year-old son and you have a 4-year-old at home. Like, what goes on in a mom's head? What kind of fog? Like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, grief brain is a real thing. But it's just for me, it was about 6 months until the big fog lifted.
Welcome to the Let's Talk Shit podcast. I am your host, Lisa Garrett. I am a wife, mom of 4 boys, 2 German Shepherds, and I'm a gut and psychology practitioner. Look, I know you've done all the things with diet and exercise, and I also know that your health means the world to you. I'm going to show you how your gut health is the game changer to your weight, your confidence, and your stamina. So if you're ready to become the shit in your life, then let's jump in. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Shit. And I have my friend Angie Hanson here with me today. Oh my gosh, you guys are going to love this. Angie is a wife, a mom, a creator, an author, a speaker, I have all these, an influencer, and a grief educator. And she's going to share her story, which is it's just so incredible about what she's been through and what she has done with her journey to help so many other people in grief, because grief is just part of life. It's just part of life. So, Angie, I'm just going to let you take it away.
Well, hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me on. I am Angie Hanson, and really, if we want to just dive into it right away, let's, my journey with grief really began a long time ago. I lost relatives, uncles, grandparents, people like that. But grief really didn't hit my life very tragically until 2006, when my 1-year-old son, Garrett, died. And Garrett had just turned 1 6 days prior to dying in June. And that really, at that moment, that was kind of the catapult that really turned our family life upside down. And we really didn't know how to navigate life that way. It was my husband, Jack, myself, and then we had our little Gracie girl. She was 4 at the time. And, we were just in survival mode, honestly, and we didn't know what to do from one minute to the next. We knew one thing was that we had to live life somehow, however that looked, going forward, for our daughter Gracie. And for us too, but our main focus was really on our daughter Gracie and trying to give her the big, beautiful life that all little kids deserve. And so that really was kind of the beginning of it all, and it was awful.
The understatement of awful. So would you mind sharing, do you know what he died of?
Yes, we did not know right away. They originally had said that it was SIDS, and our pediatrician was amazing, and he was devastated because Garrett had just actually been in for his 1-year checkup, and he was devastated, and he asked for our permission to do a second autopsy, because he kind of had told us, he's like, I know that kids older than 1 can die from SIDS, or they also call it SUD, sudden unexplained death. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's usually for kids that are older than 1. And he just asked if he could do a second autopsy. We gave him the permission to do that, because we weren't settled with SIDS either. And fortunately for that, he did come back, and they did find something they had went back to that they had seen on the original autopsy, and it was something with his heart. And basically, Garrett had, it's a really long name. It's ectopic origin of the right coronary artery. And so in our terms, his right coronary artery was kinked. And so it always causes sudden death, either in rest or in extreme activity. and Garrett died taking his afternoon nap.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah. And it's a lot of the times as a mom, I sat there and questioned myself as a mom, like, what did I miss? What signs were there? And like I said before, our pediatrician was amazing. And he came to our house to talk to Jack and I, and he was just like, there's nothing, there's no signs, there's nothing, especially in a child. And he kind of equated it to, maybe you've seen like a basketball player running down the court and just collapsing and dying, because it always causes sudden cardiac death. And so that was just one of those things we just, so then we also, like, we were like, okay, is this hereditary? Can Gracie have this? Does she have this? All those things. Well, we went, he set us up with the lead cardiologist here in the Omaha area, and at Children's Hospital, and we went and visited him, and he explained it more in depth. And there's nothing we did. There's no like family history. There's no hereditary anything. We did have Gracie checked. She had all the tests done. She had an echocardiogram. We got to see everything. They were able to show us kind of like where it was on Garrett's heart that it happened, but she was completely fine. So it was just one of those things that we just don't know.
Oh my gosh. So is that like in an adult, which would be like a black widow?
Oh, the widowmaker, yeah.
Widowmaker?
No, not really, because widowmakers are just clogged arteries.
Yeah. Yeah.
That they just clog. But this was, it was actually just it was kinked, and it's very rare. It's not very common.
Mm-hmm.
I have actually met somebody that has it. As an adult, they found out going in for a routine test, and they put a stent in. But they have since had to put several stents in because it's not strong enough to really keep it straight, I guess you'd say.
Okay. So is there like, can that part of the heart be replaced with like, how they use different valves and things to replace in people's hearts? Nothing surgically can be done.
Not that I'm aware of today. At that time, it'll be 20 years this year that Garrett's been gone, which is crazy to me. But 20 years ago, which is so weird to say.
It is.
But 20 years ago, there was not anything. And I honestly haven't done any research, since to see.
So what the heck? So you lose your 1-year-old son and you have a 4-year-old at home. Like, what goes on in a mom's head? What kind of fog? Like, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, grief brain is a real thing. But it's just, for me, it was about 6 months until the big fog lifted. Mm-hmm. But for me, I was not able to go back to work. Mm-hmm. I couldn't process daily things. I struggled talking to people. Just because everything was a chore, kind of, in a sense, and it was just like, I couldn't do it. It was a lot of laying on the couch, laying on the bed, just looking at pictures. For me, one of the biggest things people always talk about in grief, which people have a hard time sleeping. I've weirdly had no issues sleeping. Like, that was my go-to. And that was that was my escape. Yeah. Was like, I will go sleep. Now, I would wake up in the middle of the night, but I could fall asleep just like that. And I think that was just my healing process for me. It was kind of just the beginning of it. But I just slept. But people cannot sleep. Most people cannot sleep. But I would wake up. And so then, for me, trying to dig myself out of that deep fog of even trying to go day by day, trying to be a mom to Gracie, trying to be a wife to Jack. it was all a lot. And what it did to my body, I can say, like, here, since you're the the nutritionist and all that stuff, but you get inundated with like food and things like that too. But like for me, my body, I couldn't eat. I lost a lot of weight. I did not take care of myself. Just I was just trying to mentally take care of myself. And luckily, I found sleep, because that is one of the most restorative things that our body can do for
sure.
us, is, restore a lot of that. But really, it was journaling a lot for me, getting all my thoughts out. So in the middle of the night, when I'd wake up crying, having the bad dreams, different things like that, I would journal. I would get up and journal. And I would journal until my tears stopped, or until I got my thoughts out, and then I could go back to sleep. And, looking back, I see the progression of healing. In the moments I didn't see it, but when I would look back 6 months later, I'd be like, wow, you are healing, you are really healing and getting those thoughts out. So I'm so glad that I journaled.
So, okay, so sleep was one of your, pillars, and you're right. That's when we heal.
Yep.
And it is also an escape. It can just shut off.
Yep.
And because here you are trying to be a mom to a 4-year-old
Yep.
who's healthy and laughing, and you just don't. You're like, what did you say to your 4-year-old?
It was,
Because
it's
four is
so,
kind of that age where they kind of get it, but kind of not.
yeah. Yeah. In the midst of all the chaos when it happened, Gracie was there, but she was not aware. I didn't think she was aware, but I think she was aware enough, knowing something had gone on and happened, and so when we got home, because Garrett was life flighted to the hospital, because they thought that they could maybe save him. So he was life flighted to the hospital. So when we got to him, he was at the hospital and he had already died. But, leaving that hospital and getting home, Gracie was at my in-laws' house and with some friends. And, she intuitively knew, that Garrett was gone. And,
Why do you say that?
what? Why do I say
that? Yeah.
Because she just when we said, we kind of walked in, she could tell that we were sad, and she's like, "Did baby Garrett die?" And
Oh
so
my gosh.
so she intuitively knew, and I didn't know she knew anything. And so anyways, that was kind of the thing. We said, "Well, yeah, he died, and he's not going to be coming home." And and she kind of said, "Well, I want to go home." And so she wanted to go home. And, you have to think of this. I mean, this was a long day for her, and so her as well, So we went home. And when we got home, our house was full of people already, and people that had found out and that were there. And I mean, for me, I just shut down, and I was like, I looked around at everybody, and I was like, I can't do this. I don't want any part of this. And so Gracie said, "Let's go to bed, Mom." And so her and I went to our bedroom, and we just laid together and fell asleep.
Wow. So, okay, so that's an interesting piece of the story I didn't know. So is Gracie intuitive today?
I feel like she is kind of, yeah. She has a sixth sense of knowing, yeah. She really does. She can read people and feel things that I feel like, she's 23 now, right? She'll be 24 here in a couple months, but she knows, she just knows things that most people her age don't.
Yeah. Yeah. That's intuition for sure.
Yeah.
And that will just develop as she ages, like with her own life experiences. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, oh my gosh. Yeah, I got chills when you said she just knew intuitively, and what she said when you walked in. Like, why would she even think that?
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Well, I had asked my friend who was there, I said, "Did you guys talk about something? Was there something said?" And She's like, no, we didn't. She goes, I wasn't going to say anything. She's like, I didn't know what to say, and I'm like, well, yeah. So she was like, absolutely not. And, and I believed her, so it was just that knowledge of her intuition of knowing.
So in your grief process, sleep, journaling, what are some other things that you did that you can think of that were helpful?
Well, a lot of the things, like for anybody, honestly, going through grief, just like getting outside, right? We need to get that fresh air. So, when moments in the first couple of weeks, when moments were a lot in my house, a friend would say, let's just go outside and take a walk. We lived on an acreage, so people were like, I had plenty of room to walk, right? So let's just go outside and get some fresh air. So that was one of the main things too. Just getting outside in the fresh air, getting some sunshine on our faces. Just I tried to. I mean. I lost a lot I didn't reach for prayer, I guess. I'm trying to find the right words of what I was going to say, but my faith was shaken completely to the core. So for me, prior to that, I would always, pray, and I couldn't find that. But if you are still able to do that, I would highly suggest, pray, however that looks. And maybe my prayers came through my journaling, right? Maybe just putting my words out there, but, just how we can regulate our bodies, breathing exercises. I mean, I had kind of known how to do that just, from reading and life. So taking deep breaths and, sitting with myself, sleep, that was, like I said, that was one of my main things. And I took to naps. I was like, I'm going to take naps every day because I needed that restorative sleep, right? For my body to heal. I decided, I needed to try to eat. How did I fuel my body? It didn't have to be perfect. This wasn't a diet or anything like that. This was just
survival.
Fuel. Yeah, it was fuel.
Survival.
Yeah.
That's the word that just keeps coming up in my mind.
Yeah. And just, I had to give myself permission also. I had to lower the bar, I could cancel events. I had to find that person I could ask permission to talk to or, be there for me. So lowering the bar to meet my expectations was, some of the biggest things that I gifted myself, I guess. And I think I did a lot of this without even realizing I did it,
Yeah. You know what? And it all just screams self-care, which is really what women who haven't been through your exact scenario really need to do. We need to sleep more.
Yeah.
We need to sleep when we want to recharge. Journaling is fabulous. We've got to get it out, whether you want to talk about it or write it. Fresh air every day. And then just lowering the bar. I mean, if more women could just lower the bar on themselves and say no, that please disease is really destructive for women because we want to please and we want to help. Did you have a lot of people that were just swarming around you?
Yeah. And that's where I get, in a sense, claustrophobic. Like for me, I shut down completely. I am not a fast processor. So I have to take things in. Like this is one thing, it's kind of funny. I've always prayed to God. I wish I was witty because I am not witty. I can't think of things.
Yes, you are.
No, but I honestly, everyone always comes up these funny little anecdotes, really quick. And I'm like, how do you do that? I'm 5 minutes later, finally it comes to me and I'm just the moment's gone, right? But, yes, it's just, I wish I was witty, but I basically shut down when too much, I can't separate all my thoughts. It's kind of a strange thing. So, and I guess for when I say lower the bar too, that's, I've learned that was for me, and I think in my life and still today, the way I am is it's still my body healing. And I have to remember that I'm not failing.
Right. Well,
so because I think that's what we kind of think. If we're not up here, then we're failing. And it's actually for a griever like myself, I'm still healing and I will heal forever.
Mhm.
And even though things are good and I'm happy but you always have that layer of grief within you no matter what.
Yeah,
And, there's certain triggers and there's all that. And
it's always
so,
there.
yeah.
Plus, it's your child. Like
Hmm.
that's part of you.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not like um, a relative, which you'd even be related to. But
Yeah.
when you go through the natural circle of life and you
Hmm.
lose grandparents and parents, it makes more sense. This makes zero sense.
Exactly.
Zero.
Yeah, one interesting thing, I went to this mom's group for moms that had lost kids and or children of all ages, and this one gal talked about it, and I've heard it several times since, but it's so true. It's like when we lose a limb, like if you lose a limb, you're never getting that part of you ever back again, ever. And
Yeah.
so it's when she said that, that really kind of just really stuck with me and made
Hmm.
sense because it is true. You have that phantom pain. People
Yeah.
have that phantom pain when they lose a limb. And it's the same as losing a child because they are part of you. And
Yeah. So
yeah,
in that first year, which would be even the first any of it,
yeah.
did you have dreams? Did you feel like you heard him? Did you feel like you felt him around you? Did you have any of that going on?
Yeah, it was really in the beginning, I felt him a lot. Like I would dream about Garrett a lot. Many a times I would wake up crying or screaming or yelling Garrett's name, and Jack would have to calm me down.
Mm.
And then there was so many little things for me, signs. I always have butterflies, and I also have rainbows, and they always came at like the perfect time. And so I knew in my mind that it was just Garrett kind of sending me a sign. And yeah, it was always his presence. Like the butterfly just coming to sit, I'm just like, I could talk to him like it was Garrett. And that those are what always gave me hope that there is more to life, that there
Right.
is light, that there will be more light.
Right. Right, right. It's what we all hope for and believe
Hmm.
in, that this is just one segment of where we are, and there's eternal
Yeah.
after that. So, and consequently, your Butterflies and Halos company, the Blue Butterfly, which is from, where's it from that you chose?
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, yeah. And when we were in Iowa State, I sent you that picture.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there's the blue butterflies that Angie has. Her,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's phenomenal. Okay, so you mentioned Jack.
Yep.
Let's hear part two of your story.
Yes. So this is, yeah, we got to year one of losing Garrett. Still just trying to find that survival mode. We thought we were doing pretty okay. Life was hard. So Garrett died in June, like I said, and so about August of 2007, then Jack he traveled for business quite a bit, and so when he got home from one of his trips, he was just like having some issues with his eye. He's like, it itches, it bothers me, it's red, whatever. And he's like, can you see anything in it? I'm looking, I'm like, I don't see anything. And so he's just like, I must have scratched it. So this went on and now I touch my eye all the time, like when I talk about it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So this went on for a couple weeks. And then finally I was like, why don't you just go to your doctor and have him look? And so he did. His doctor's like, I don't see anything. Let's just put you on some like antibiotics and different like eye drops. So he did. It didn't go away. Then he sent him to an ophthalmologist. Jack had never had any eye issues. He had 20/20 vision. Everything was always fine. So this went on so this was probably towards the end of August, September, October-ish. He went into the ophthalmologist. She saw something finally in his eye. And then she probably knew what it was, but so this is back in 2007. Nebraska didn't have the equipment to do like ultrasounds of the eye or anything, which is strange to me. So
Very.
we were sent to Iowa City, and we went to they have a very not top ranked ophthalmology department, and we went there. She sent us there, and he went through the gamut and had an ultrasound, and we found out that Jack had cancer. He had ocular melanoma. And so Jack had a bout of melanoma. Jack was redhead, blue-eyed, fair skin. But he had a bout of melanoma when he was 21. He had a mole on his arm that was removed. And so there was really nothing else with that. So this was 15 years later. At 36, he gets diagnosed with this ocular melanoma. And, in Iowa, we were like just stunned. We were shocked. It was not what we did not even plan on hearing that at all.
So hang on. So you were sitting there, you get the news. Do you remember what went through your head initially when you heard that?
Well, yeah, for me, I remember I looked at Jack and I just saw all the color drain out of his face, and I saw tears well up in his eyes, and I remember I'm like, what the frick is going on?
You can say it on this. Okay, they're used to it.
Yeah, exactly. But I was just, I really did. And so they were like, okay, they're like, we need to set up an appointment. You need to have your eye removed. You need to have this. They were like, da 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 da. And we're like,
Hold it.
stop.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, we need to process. And Jack was just like, nope. He's like, I'm going out to call my parents. That was the first thing he said. He's like, I want to call my parents. So they were watching Gracie. And so he calls them, and, his dad was a very, very well-spoken man and a good guy. And he was just kind of like, maybe you kids should just come home and let's figure it all out before everything goes on. And Jack was like, I agree 100%. So, we go back,
so
and
he was 31,
36.
36. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we went back inside to the hospital, in the doctor's area, and they were like, okay, we're going to run tests. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And Jack's like, no, he's like, we're going home. He's like, we're going home. He's like, I obviously have cancer. I need to go see my family. He goes, I want to go see my daughter. And I just remember we left, and I drove home, from Iowa City, and we didn't talk. It was nighttime, and I would look at Jack when the car lights were coming at us, and I could just see tears in his face, and, and I just kind of let it be, because he was processing this more than me, because this was his body, right? And his life, and his future. And so we got home, and things kind of slowed for just a minute. I think Jack wanted to process a lot of that, but then he talked to his primary doctor, and basically he kind of set up more tests here, and Iowa still wanted him to come have the eye removal done. But when we did all the tests, we found out in the beginning of November that year that Jack did have stage 4 terminal cancer, because it had spread to his brain and his liver and his spleen.
Oh.
And so, at that time you're given a diagnosis of not if you'll die, but when you'll die. We don't know how long you have, but we can treat it, but you won't live forever,
Ugh.
And so those words were that's when it hit me the hardest. I don't think before then I was like, okay, cancer, we can, we got treatments, we got things, we can do all this stuff. We can beat this, right? That was my mentality at that time. And then once we got that initial diagnosis of how bad it was, I was like, this is bad. And I'm like, so I started grieving Jack that day, and because I knew that our future life was going to be cut short, and our forever was not going to be forever. And so Jack, then we never did the eye removal because there was no reason to at that point. They were like, he has brain tumors on his brain. So they're like, when we do brain radiation, we'll just radiate the eye too and get rid of the tumor that way. And, it did help with the tumor, it shrunk it quite a bit and all that. He did the chemo. He did all that stuff, and Jack ended up doing that for 16 months, and he lost his battle on February 8th, 2009. So we're coming up actually on, 17 years?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so February 8th, he lost his battle with it. And, Jack fought hard. He did all the things, that he thought he was supposed to do.
Right. Right. You're just fighting for your life.
Yeah.
Just fighting for your life. And then meanwhile, you're fighting for survival. Now it's you and your daughter. And here you go with grief number 2. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. What did you do to survive?
Well, that's a good question, Lisa.
I mean, seriously, because you're here and every time I see you, I see this happy person. I know it's been several years, but like, what did you do to pull yourself through that?
Honestly, I had to believe that there was light and there was better, and I didn't know what that looked like, but I've talked about this many a times. I had my daughter Gracie. It was still the same thing Jack and I had said to each other when Garrett died. She deserves a big, beautiful life, however that looks. So after Jack died, I looked at Gracie and I'm like, she still deserves a big, beautiful life. It's going to be different. It's, we are just the two of us now. And I was scared to death. I was just devastated. I was trying to figure out, who am I grieving? My son or my husband, and then I just really had to focus on my choices. And I've talked about this, I could choose to live and survive, or I could choose not to. And the path of choosing not to is dark and lonely and ugly. But the choice of surviving is beautiful. It's wonderful. And there you see possibilities. And it was hard. I mean, it was an hour by hour, minute by minute days, it really was. It wasn't like this all just happened. And it took months for me to be able to just enjoy my life.
With your daughter. And I'm sure in your mind, you're like, I'm all she has now. Like, I got to keep this afloat. Mm-hmm. I can't let her down. She's counting on me to be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's lost, half of her family.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, how did Gracie do with all of this?
Gracie actually, children are resilient. They really are. And I wish every adult could have just a little bit of that in them when it comes to struggles in life. I really, really do. They need a 6-year-old's mentality of that. So she was 6 when Jack died, and then, but she was a positive Nelly. I don't know. She was just she really was like, so she was not home. Jack was on hospice for 2 days. So I didn't really know that he was going to die. I didn't know it was going to go that fast. And so when he was home though, Gracie wasn't home that night. She actually had went and spent the night at my sister's house. And I thought, well, then she'll come back. It'll be Sunday and we'll just kind of get into a normal routine. In my mind, I think I had a clouded vision of Jack will just be on hospice for maybe a couple weeks or so. God's going to just let us do this a little bit longer and gracefully, but that was not the plan. So Jack died Sunday morning. So when Gracie got home, her last vision of leaving her house was people all over our house, a hospital bed in our living room, Jack there, kind of just things going on. When she got back, there was nothing. The room was put back together. They came lickety split and everything Jack was gone. Everybody was gone. There was people there. But her first thing that she said to me was like, I said, Daddy died. And she was just like, yeah, I know. And then she just kind of said, she's like, so when are you getting married again?
Oh, that's awesome.
So I was like, I don't know.
You manifested that right then and there.
I know. So I was just kind of like, that's seriously the first thing you're saying to me?
Wow.
But that's why I'm like, the kids' thought process is not, it's not doom and gloom. It's hope. They have this hope in them that is just like, that I wish that we all could have.
Yeah. It's innocent. It's
It
hopeful.
is.
It's bright.
Yeah, yeah. And so then, she runs downstairs because I had taken her upstairs in our office to tell her. She runs downstairs, and I know the first thing she was doing, she was looking to see where Jack was or everything was. And, she was just like, okay. She's like, so now what do we do? And I'm like, that's a good question. I'm like, I'm not sure, but we'll get this figured out, And so, it really is, it really is innocence. And then, yeah, and then I know, like, just, to let your listeners know as well, tragedy struck me 2 months after that exactly, when my brother had died, and my brother Seth had battled his brain tumor for 5 years. And he lived on the farm with us, him and his wife Joey did, and I just, that was just the one that kind of really, really rocked my boat, because he was the last piece to the puzzle in like the boys, on the farm. And he was like, when we left Jack's funeral, my brother was driving me and Gracie home, and he was just like, don't worry, sissy. And it's like, I got this. He's like, we've got this. He's like, I'm going to take care of you. And then his brain tumor just came back a month after Jack had died. And it just exploded really in his brain. There's no other word for it. And my brother died on April 7th, 2009. So exactly 2 months after Jack.
Gosh, how much more grief can one person handle? I'm sure you've been asked that a lot. Do you feel like this was your mission to be a light for people because of your journey?
I think this is probably God's, this is part of God's destiny for me. I don't like to say plan, but I think it's his destiny, and, we just don't know. And I am glad that I am able to be a speaker of hope, and I'm glad I am able to have the knowledge that I've gained through all my experiences. I'd give all my knowledge and everything back to have all my people back, but that's not how life was supposed to be for me. And, I have to accept that. And so what do I do with my life, right? I have to do something with what I've been given. And like I said, it's the choices that we can make every single day. And it's just how we survive.
Well, you've done more than survive. I mean, you probably, years into it, so now comes the really awesome part of your story. So I know people are like, oh my gosh, if you're thinking that right now, you're exactly right, because I know the story, and hearing you tell it, like I've never heard you tell it like this. So thank you for that. But let's go on.
Yeah. So now today, it started in June I am remarried to Chance. Which that was, another gift. I started receiving gifts, I think, as soon as I started allowing myself to open up to the possibilities that life was not all bad. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of it happened sooner than later, but it, which is fine. Obviously there's no timeline. There's no timeline in grief. There's no timeline in hope. There's no timeline for anything. And so I married Chance, and we've created a beautiful life. And June of 2022, I started my business, Butterflies and Halos. And that just came out of really a need in my eyes of taking the stigma out of words that surround death and grief. And I'm tired of the cliche with deepest sympathies. I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't want to hear that anymore because those words don't encourage me. They don't help me. They don't give me hope. They're easy. They're a very easy thing for anyone to say. But I just was sitting there one night and I was like, why can't we have greeting cards that say what we want to say to people? I want them to be snarky. I want them to be sassy. I want them to be full of meaning. I want them to have the words that I wish I were given when my people had died. And so my first one, so I was sitting there on the couch with Chance one night. I was just like, why can't we say my first card that I made was, I don't know what to say. Let's go eat one of those damn casseroles, right?
Because so good.
Because that's what you get, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then the second one that I after play on the casserole was like, I didn't bring a casserole. I brought the wine, my PJs, and my listening heart. So I'm like, okay, I can turn these into like something kind of snarky. So I started with a small batch, maybe like 20 cards. And then we'd sit there around, we'd like come up with things to say. And, I have some that just say, if another person tells me everything happens for a reason, I'm going to throat punch them, right? So, but those are the cards that I would give my best friend, right? If she had lost her spouse, I would give her one of those, right? Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't give her a deepest sympathy card because we don't talk to each other like that.
Correct.
Right? So that's how the greeting card, the stationery kind of all evolved. And I have about 200 plus greeting cards now. And I have added just like regular greeting cards in there, but just like the holiday cards. It is impossible to find holiday cards that touch on grief, whether it's Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, they don't have cards. I've walked up and down Target's aisles. I've walked up and down, I haven't gone to Hallmark, but I've, like Hy-Vee, our local grocery store, and there are no cards that say anything like around grief and and most of the cards that are all sympathy cards. My cards are not sympathy cards. They're grief cards.
Yeah.
They're I see you cards. I'm here for you. Mm-hmm. I'm standing with you. I'm holding you cards. Mm-hmm. They're not sympathy because we don't need sympathy. We need love.
Yeah, you do. And hope and inspiration. Yep. And maybe a little humor. And you say you're not funny. Humor. You say you're not funny, but your grief cards are snarky. That's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny without being too funny, I guess, if that's what you want to say. Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. And you even have grief cards for animals.
Yep. For pet loss. And, it's greeting cards are simple, right? So that was my first thing is like, what can I create that is simple? Greeting cards are simple, right? And I tell you, Lisa, when I go to events, I do pop-ups here and there. When I go to those, I get more comments and support. People are over there chuckling like, oh my gosh, look at this one. Oh, look at this one. They're like, these are the best. They're like, oh my gosh, I got to have this one. I got to have this one. Yeah. So they are so relatable. And people want humor and snark because even in the depth of grief, I will say like when Garrett died, I didn't have this. But when Jack died and my brother died, I had some snark in me and sass. And it was probably like I was done with all the shit. Yeah. So it was probably a lot of that, but you rely on that humor. And if you can get a laugh out of a card and it'll just make a world of difference.
Not only that, but if it speaks what you're thinking, it's relatable, like you said. Yeah. And people are like, oh my gosh, the casseroles. Everybody brings a freaking casserole, Yeah.
And it's like, it's just one of those things like people don't like, most people don't know what to say, right?
So they don't either say anything or they
Yeah,
don't show up
exactly.
and they just look at you and they
And
want
then
you to
that
say something.
And that's worse, So I've created the words for you, right? For the people. So you don't have to really say anything. You can hand them this card. If they open it up, then that's going to open the dialogue, and we really just have to be able to sit with people. We have to show up, even if it's a card. That's all you need.
That's right. And a card that someone reads that doesn't have like, a sunset on it that says with deepest sympathy.
I know.
Or my deepest condolences. Because like, what does that mean? Like, I'm always like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know,
It doesn't. I mean, it's just an easy thing to
safe.
say.
It's safe because it's
safe.
uncomfortable.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
You have a card, and I can't remember what it says, but I bought like 5 of them, and I unfortunately had to give them out. I will remember their name. What's that card say?
Something like I will always say their name, or I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
I've
have so
sent
many
that
cards
because
now. I can't remember.
we have 200.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that is that's important. But talk about those ornaments. I freaking love those.
Yeah. So, yes, I have an ornament. It's a feather ornament. And the origin of that was the first Christmas that Garrett had died. So that was 6 months after Garrett had died. I thought, what can I give my family and some close friends? Something, I just wanted to create something that I could give them to remember Garrett. And so I went to like Hobby Lobby or whatever, and I got the little plastic ornaments. And actually, at the time, I think they were my original ones are glass.
Yeah.
And I put like a little feather dust snow in there, and then I put one little feather in there, and I tied a ribbon, and I put that in there, and then I wrote them all a card, and it said like, this feather fell from heaven. And, so then I thought, as I built this business, my stationery business, I'm like, I can create these ornaments and make them and sell them, So I was like, I'm going to start. So I did that. And I tell you, they are a bestseller. So I was like, how can I create these? So now I do use like the plastic bulbs, just safer and easier. But I create them like I bought white boxes. I do the red ribbon. I have them all packaged up, and I want to make it simple for you to give to the grieving person or to the person that needs it most, right? So I've done all that work, and they are so popular, and I tell people, like, I still have mine out. I keep mine out in my office, and I just hang it on an ornament hook, so mine never gets shut away in a box ever. I'm not closing the box on that, but it's just a simple gift, and they're beautiful.
They are. I've purchased a few of them over the years, and I have given them face to face. And all these mothers, I think about 5, all the mothers had lost their sons.
Wow.
And I actually wrote in the card, and I think I used your cards too, that this is created by a mother who lost her son. And some I have dropped off at work, some I have dropped off at a house. And oh my gosh, the response from that, whoo, like I'm kind of relieved I wasn't there to see their face, but I just think it was a moment they needed. Mm-hmm. So anybody listening, you need to go to like your Etsy site, right?
Well, there are I have my website. My Shopify store, butterfliesandhalos.com.
Oh, it's such an awesome gift because it is beautifully wrapped, and it is the sweetest gift to give someone who, one of my friends lost her son. He was in his 30s. He had a heart attack. Hers is out year round. It's been 3 years. And so she said, oh, it's still out. And I actually go by the little hanger form to put it in there.
Yeah.
Because I just want it to be simple. But yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful gift.
Yeah. And, like giving that, I think the reason why a lot of people, it makes a big impact is because they feel seen. They feel seen in their grief. And they're like, okay, someone is not forgetting. Someone's acknowledging it, and they're doing it very simply. And that is all, as a grieving mom, as a grieving spouse, as a griever, that's all we want. we want to feel seen. That's really what it
Yeah.
comes down to.
Yeah. And I think in general, with everything you've said, self care, sleep, natural light, saying what you mean and not just cliches, being seen, being validated, but also having that, like, I love when you and Gracie just went upstairs and you had this house full of people.
Yeah.
Like you're like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
I love, and I just have this image. And so just, hunkering down and being with yourself and being with, your other child at the time. And then Jack was probably working the room, right? Mm-hmm. Because
Yep.
that's kind of what guys do. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Some, I guess, I don't know all, but everybody just, I think grief is one of those things that shows you what you're made of. Mm-hmm. You see, like, wow, I didn't know I was made of to do this and this. So now it's been several years later. How do you still honor, support? I mean, I think your business says it all because it's about all the people you've lost, your people. And so talk to me about what you've done with your business besides the cards and the ornaments. Tell me what else.
So I wrote a book, I wrote a memoir, and it's called Chapters of a Resilient Heart. And that is the story of all my people. And I really wrote it in a way that I just wanted people to get to know who my people were. And then I wanted people to hear how they died and hear how we honored them. And so that's kind of how it's broken up. I wrote Garrett, then Jack, and then my brother. And then, I wrote in there different ways, like, how to kind of survive the holidays, dating and remarrying, like hope and faith and just all those things. I wanted to give people a little insight of how I did it and, like that. So it's really all their story. And so I'm very proud of that book. And that is also on my website. And then I've also since written in several anthologies. I've written a chapter about whatever that anthology is about. So I've written, let's see, Resilient AF, Stories of Resilience. So I wrote my chapter about resilience, and then Stories of Family and Friends Lost. And that one is basically about Jack and his journey. Just because the man, Trunis Goggins, who compiled this book, he didn't have any story from a widow's perspective. So he asked me to write about Jack, and I did that. And then Grace and Grit, I wrote about my faith journey and how I'd lost my faith and how I found it and how it's been my anchor ever since. And then... and then I just wrote, actually, I did, just this past year, I did a 365-day devotional. So I wrote 5 dates in it, this devotional, and the dates are very significant. They're the day that Jack died. One's Gracie's birthday, one's Garrett's birthday, one's Garrett's death day, and then one is Chance and I's anniversary.
Oh, beautiful.
And so these were the dates I wrote about and just talked about in that for a devotional for people. And then I also wrote in an Advent, and I wrote about peace. So I've written in several of those anthologies, so it's been great.
Yeah, and how cathartic for you.
Yeah, I love writing. I do love writing.
Awesome.
That's what I do most of the time. But
So you
I took a
probably
lot of
hate Chat GPT then.
yeah, no, I don't. Yeah. Sometimes like one thing that helped me just like sometime was like help me like organize like chronologically, like how do I, give me my outline. Help me get an outline of how this should look. And, that is kind of helpful, I use ChatGPT for social posts and things like that, emails, things, to help me with that. But no, I love to write. I just think,
awesome.
People, and a lot of these books, sometimes people can't read early on in their grief, and it takes time, but sometimes people can read early on in grief. So if I can just, my books are meant to, hold space, meet people where they're at in their grief and really just kind of hold hope for everybody.
Yeah, and there's no straight line with grief. Like people are like, well, they should, well, they shouldn't.
Yeah.
The shoulds and shouldn'ts. It's like, how can that even apply? It doesn't
Oh
even
yeah.
apply.
There's a lot of dumb things people say. Yeah. And
There
yeah, grief
is.
is not linear.
Yeah. I just, no, it's not linear at all. And I love your story. I love your journey, and we could probably talk
I know.
all day
I
long
know.
about it. So if people want to find you and they want to get that gorgeous ornament, I suggest you buy like 5 because unfortunately you will need to pass it on to someone. And the feeling that I had when I gave that was one person I knew really well, the other person I didn't know well at all, but I knew her daughter because she was a client. And I was like, oh, I just, but the feeling that you get when you give a gift like that makes you feel like, okay, that was the right thing to do in time of grief. It wasn't a stupid sympathy card,
Yeah.
with a donation somewhere, which is
Yeah.
fine. But this is something that is so personal and relatable because I always put in the cards that it was created by a mother who lost her son. That's what
I
I
love
said.
that.
And so get 5 because you will feel better about the efforts you're taking for that person who is sad and grieving.
Yeah. For
So your
sure. Yeah.
website, they can find you on Instagram, Facebook,
Yep. Yep.
Etsy.
Etsy. Yep. I'm all over. Everything's butterfliesandhalos.com for all those places. So yeah, I'm all over.
If there was like something you could tell somebody, like, do you reach out to people who have lost husbands and children? Are you still doing that?
Yeah, actually, yeah, and I am. I'm actually starting a local moms group here coming up for moms that have lost children. So yeah, if you have anybody on your list that would be, and it's free, it's going to be a free group. We're going to meet once a month. So if you have anybody that you think should be interested or anybody else knows, let me know. I talk to a lot of different people and I get messages all the time. Would you be willing to talk to people? And I always do. And I recently did that with a friend of mine, and I talked to her friend who had just lost her daughter. And she told me after we talked for about an hour, she said, Angie, she goes, I got more out of this 1 hour conversation than I did the many times I've been to my therapist. And so, and there's nothing wrong with therapy.
No.
I tried it. It wasn't for me. But therapists, most of them, I should be careful what I say, but most of them just, they don't have the lived experiences,
That's what
so,
it is.
yeah.
You've walked where they're walking.
Yeah.
And so they can say something and you can say something and you just connect.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm always open to talk. I do grief coaching. So yeah, I got my certification in that, and I've got
You
a
know what?
couple.
I don't think you need a stupid certification.
I
You have
know.
freaking lived it.
I know. It was just like this mind thing in my
I
mind. Like
know.
Angie was overthinking it, and she was like, "Oh, you need a little paper that says it." I'm like, I took the certification. I'm like, I know all this stuff.
You should be teaching them.
I know, right? And so it was just one of those things. But yeah, I do love, and I have a lot of like different new ideas coming this year in 2026 that people have approached me about. So I'm super excited about that. And yeah, so more to come.
You look awesome. Your life is beautiful. Gracie is a doll. She is just totally crushing her life.
She really is. Gosh, I'm kind of jealous of her sometimes. I'm like, dang, girl.
Well, you know what? You did good because you don't get kids like that just from nothing. You don't.
I know.
Because you could have curled up and just died within yourself, but something inside of you, she
Yeah.
deserved that big, beautiful life, and you gave it to her. And so she
Yeah.
is rocking her life. I can't wait for her to tap into her intuition more
I
because
know.
she's got it. Why would kids say that? I'm
I
still
know.
kind of stuck on that.
Yeah, I love it.
That is
Well, she's
cool.
in love now, so who knows? That
She's
might
in
get a
love
little
land.
that might get a little blinded for a while, but no.
That's
She
good.
is kind of funny though, because she was like, well, she's like, I'm going to work on my relationships with girls this year because I've secured the man. So I'm like, okay.
But see, right there, that the
Yeah.
idea that her heart is open to doing
Yeah.
that. She could have put up a wall. I lost my brother. I lost
Yeah.
my dad. I lost my uncle. I'm not going there.
Yeah.
And she could have totally just dove into her work and been completely focused on that. But you showed her, because you are remarried, that you can have a second love. Mm-hmm. Like your heart can heal. It never forgets, ever, ever, ever.
Never.
But you can actually grow new love, more love.
Yeah, that was one thing I talked about in my book a little bit was, when Jack was on, when we knew his days were getting shorter, we talked about life after him a little bit, and he talked about me loving again. And, I talked about it in my book, how Jack taught me how to love, and he taught me how to love beyond him, right? And so he gave me the greatest gift and blessing when he said, I want you to love again. So,
Oh my gosh, I got chills. Gosh,
Yeah.
this story is
Yeah.
just so great. Well, I'm going to have you on again, and we'll talk about more of some of the other things. And I just love your story. I love your mission. I love what you're doing. I love seeing your stuff. And I'm so grateful that you shared this with people, because you never know what people are going through.
exactly.
And how we can help on the other side of it when we're not the ones in the grief also makes such a huge difference. You can't
sure,
bring back that person, but you can give a better card, give an ornament, or say a better thing, and it can make all the difference, because I bet you remember some of the best things and some of the not best things people said to you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I really do. And, it's just to kind of end with that a little bit too is, like when grief comes, for a lot of your listeners, they might be like, oh, but I don't have a lot of grief. I haven't had a death loss, but loss could be, financial, job, divorce. It could be, like in your arena that you do, like, the weight gains, the weight losses, the unhealthiness, that's loss and grief. Your clients, a lot of them are grieving. And, like when they come to you to maybe, get better, get their gut healthy and do all that, it's probably from something that they're going through. And the trauma could be, like I said, financial, job,
Sure.
trauma from the past. It doesn't have to be death. And so that is kind of what I'm trying to encompass too with what I'm doing is grief is grief, and grief has many shades, and it's just not death. And so that's why I think, this community is great, and I'm thankful you let me share this.
No, I'm so grateful too. And just because the funeral has come and gone doesn't mean that person just picked up and went to work.
No.
That's when it starts.
Yeah,
right?
It really does.
So yeah, thank you. I'm going to end with that. And you guys check out Angie's website, Instagram, all of it. And we're going to have you on again and share some more, because I know people want to know more about you and what you're doing, because you're such an inspiration. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Hey, before you go, would you like to receive my ultimate gut repair guide for free? This guide has everything you need to know about leaky gut, what's causing it, how it's affecting your daily life, a meal plan, and 5 ways you can start healing your gut today. This is the same framework that my VIP clients use when they start healing their gut. It's amazing. All you have to do is leave an honest review of Let's Talk Shit, screenshot it, share it to your Instagram stories, and tag me at Lisa Garrett Nutrition. I hope today's episode inspired you to make some shit happen in your life, because you're freaking awesome. And I cannot wait to connect with you next time on Let's Talk Shit.